Welcome to Building Healthy Relationships, the 4 Habits podcast, helping you enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Andrea and John Taylor-Cummings, recognized authorities on the subjects of improving work relationships and cultures, as well as couple and home relationships.
Well, hello and welcome to our audience all the way around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you're in or whatever time you're listening. It's great to have you join us. Today we have the joy of being in conversation with Katharine Hill. Welcome, Katharine. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, yes, we're really revving up for this conversation. But before we do that, we need to give you the proper introduction. So John's going to take us through a bit of your bio.
Let me do that. Always a joy. So Katharine Hill is a director of Care for the Family, a national UK charity which aims to strengthen family life and help those who face family difficulties. So very important work. Katharine speaks and writes widely on family issues. As an established speaker and broadcaster, she's addressed thousands of people both across the UK and internationally on marriage and parenting issues, and we'll be picking up on that.
For sure, yeah.
She's the author of several books, including the very popular Left to Their Own Devices and also A Mind of Their Own. Katharine is married to Richard, and they have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. We're hearing a bit more about that. I think you've got more...
Another wedding on
the way as well in the family. So exciting times ahead.
And there is so much that we would love to unpack with you, Katharine. But let's start at the very beginning to talk, a little bit about your background and what's driving the current passion that you have before we focusing more on, your work with young minds and connecting with the next generation.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you for having me. And I think my passion for family life began right back when I trained to be a family lawyer. So I was originally a family lawyer, and at that time I came up front with the pain of family breakdown. So many people who, often through no fault of their own, just circumstances have not worked out, whatever has happened, and marriages had come to an end, or there was issues with children. And being upfront with that made me realize the importance, I think, of being able to build strong family relationships before the tough times hit, and being able to equip families to manage those times when they do come, because some tough times come to every single home. And so it was a great joy, having worked as a lawyer and then brought up our own kids, to be able to join Care for the Family when our children were just sort of starting secondary school. So I've been working for Care for the Family now for over 20 years. And it's just a joy to be able to, we try and put fences around the top of the cliff as much as be the ambulance at the bottom, and teach families how to build strong relationships together. So I think that's where my passion came from, and it's just such a joy to be able to be involved in that.
And we can see the passion continuing to bubble out. And we love doing these podcasts, because for as long as we've known you, I didn't know you were a family lawyer originally. That's what.
Did you not know that? Oh, there we go. There we go.
I was going to say, I just love that analogy of the fences at the top of the cliff rather than ambulances at the bottom. That is so much the page that we're on.
Yeah.
We're saying, look, the challenges are inevitable out there. The cliff is there. Let's just keep people on the cliff. Keep people on the cliff. Do whatever we can to give people the skills up front. So important to be able to do that.
To navigate those. Yes, absolutely. So how does that feed into the work that you're doing now? What's your specific focus, your specific role?
Well, at Care for the Family, we work in 3 areas. We work in the area of couple relationships, marriage. We work in the area of parenting, and in the area of bereavement. And bereavement is fairly specialized. So primarily it's supporting those who've been widowed young and those who have lost a child. But my focus is very much in the area of marriage and the area of parenting. So I speak and write into both those areas. But in the last couple of years, my passion has been to equip parents to navigate the digital age with their children.
Is that the topic of conversation now?
Well, honestly, I first wrote a book called Left to Their Own Devices in 2017, and it's currently on its fourth edition because it's
Wow.
changing. Everything's changing.
Mm.
The climate's changing. When I first wrote the book, I think the advice was, oh, well, just make sure that your computer is in the main room with everybody else and just keep an eye on what your children are doing. And
Mm.
now, we're talking about AI, we're talking about Instagram influencers, we're talking about gaming, and then the impact on mental well-being. And I think that would be the other area. They kind of go hand in hand in some ways, but the other area that I'm very passionate about, and my most recent book in that respect is called A Mind of Their Own, and how, again, we can help build good emotional well-being in our children's lives from the beginning in the small everyday ups and downs of family life. So yeah, those would be the two areas that is my particular focus at the moment, but I'm really happy to talk about any issue of
No,
relationships and family.
I guess I love that, and it's a great point you make there about the updates. I hadn't realized you're on to update number 4 already on the first book.
It's
But
crazy. It's the gift that keeps giving.
the world is just changing so quickly. I mean, we heard there was a story the other day. We were listening to a mother and daughter interacting, and the daughter just happened to mention in passing that, oh yeah, if you want to bypass that, you just use a VPN, and that bypasses all the checks and that. And the mother's there thinking, hang on, what are all those checks that I put in place to make sure that you were secure? She had her ways of just getting around them. I was like, oh my goodness
Exactly.
gracious me! I mean, of course, VPNs have been around more than the 4 years, but certainly not in sort of common usage by the young people as they are today. So you absolutely have to be doing those updates to be on point with that and to stay
Yeah, and
one step ahead if you can.
I think that's one of the issues is that in most other areas of parenting, um, we teach our children to cross the road safely. We teach them to swim. We put stair gates up so they don't fall down the stairs. We limit
Yeah.
sugar. All those things. We know how to keep them safe, physically healthy and safe, because we've done those things ourselves. But in this area of the digital age, it's as important to keep them safe. But so often they're one step ahead of us.
Yeah.
And I think
Absolutely.
More than one.
COVID changed everything. And a lot of us had to upskill quickly, but nevertheless, our children are growing up in a different world, I think, than most of us grew up in. And so, yeah, but I think parents don't need to worry and don't need to panic because there's just so much that we can do to make a difference.
Well, that's a brilliant note to use as a launch pad to go into the conversation, to just remember that there are things we can do and we don't need to worry. And I was going to ask you, you wrote the book in 2017 when, everybody, all children, I guess, were having iPhones and these handheld devices that they can pretty much choose their own stuff. Control then was a challenge enough. Then came COVID. Then came the AI world post-COVID. And the underlying theme through all of that has always been concern over, firstly, their safety, but also their mental health. How have you seen that changing over the last, say, 4 or 5 years? What are the key things that we need to pay attention to now?
Well, I think you're so right about the mental health of our young people, and I know this is an international audience, and I think this is an international issue.
Indeed.
Obviously, my focus has been more the UK, but it's very interesting when you look at the graphs that represent children's mental well-being. Well, first off, if you look back to 2007 when the iPhone was invented, and then 2010, just after that, is when Instagram came on the scene, and also when there was the front-facing cameras.
Right.
And if you match those with the graphs of the state of our children's mental well-being, it is around that time, around 2010, that those graphs just go upwards, a big tick upwards. And there's a bit of a debate about causation, but I think you can't lay all the blame at technology, but I think it has a massive amount to do with it. There has to be a connection. And for girls, it's very often Instagram and the whole self-image and self-esteem. And for boys, it's very often much more to do with gaming and looking at porn and those kind of issues. And yeah, we want to protect our children from these things, and there is much we can do. So that's my
Wow.
overall message.
Oh my word. So just to be clear, as iPhone and then Instagram and all those things kicked off, the increase in mental health challenges went off the chart, so to speak. And we're still
Exactly.
kind of going in that
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. That's that's a big
Sobering.
message, a
Mhm.
sobering message right there. What's the role of relationships with parents in all of this? What do we do?
Well, we often say at Care for the Family that we're not bringing up children and we're not even bringing up teenagers, but we're bringing up adults.
Mhm.
And our goal as parents is to equip our children for
Mhm.
the day
Mhm.
when we're not there at their shoulder. And so our role is to put wisdom in their hearts and to enable them to make good choices in a world where any choice is possible. Now, of course, that means we want to put all those safety protections in place. But more than that, we want to equip them to make good choices themselves. So when we're not there and someone else has got a phone that doesn't have the protections on it that we have put on, so that they can keep themselves safe, and not just in the digital age, but just to be wise in all the choices of life. That's our goal.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One of the things we would say to our children from they're little is be careful of the things you look at. Look after your eyes and look after your heart, because all these things leave a lasting footprint and
Mm.
affect you for the rest of life. So absolutely teaching them wisdom.
And we've been living there because we've just had our youngest has just come back from first year at university, away from home, living out there in life, and
Having to
having to
make
make
choices.
choices. But I
Yeah.
love that language that you use. There, we're not bringing up children or teenagers. We're bringing up adults.
Yeah.
That's the end goal. Think about it like that.
Healthy.
How do you prepare them to be adults?
Mhm.
Are there any tips or examples you can share that just to bring us alive a little bit
Yeah.
there? Any
So many.
practical things that people listening in can say, oh yeah, I can do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, well, one really key, this is a really practical tool. And I'd love to just talk a bit more about some of the character stuff as well. But
Hmm.
this is a really practical tool that parents can do. This is my top tip, would be to have something called a family media agreement. And
Mm-hmm.
all this means is that you get together with your family, whatever shape, whatever size, maybe parenting on your own, maybe in a step family, may have little ones, teenagers, but get them all together and make it a fun thing, get some snacks and drinks, and talk together about what your ground rules are for use of technology in your home according to your values. And I always say, be prepared to draw another chair up to the table for this conversation for everybody else's parent who will be joining the conversation, because you will hear from your child that everyone else's parent lets them take a smartphone to preschool, play Fortnite till 3 a.m. the night before their maths exam or whatever. But yeah, I say we are the parents, and we need to sometimes take a hit in the popularity stakes on
Yeah.
some of these
Mm.
boundaries. But the deal with the media agreement is everyone has a voice, and even the most uncommunicative teenager will join in if they think they're being listened to, if they can
Yeah.
shape the conversation. And then the thing is, you just talk about, what are your ground rules? So do you allow phones at the table? Do you allow phones in the bedroom? I think absolute top of the list for me, if you've already got a teenager who has a phone in the bedroom at night, it's probably, just go with that.
That
But if
bodes
you've
sails.
got exactly, but if you've got little ones, get one of those chargers, multi chargers, and everybody's phone gets put in that at night, because they don't need these things whirring around their heads. I have a friend who had a sleepover party, which is always a bit of a misnomer, isn't it? Never much sleep
No
goes
sleeping.
on at these parties. And she said that all these kids, they had to put their phones in a basket in the kitchen at night. And in the middle of the night, she went downstairs because she wanted to drink water. And she said, these phones, it was like the Blackpool illuminations, there was just
Wow.
flashing, flashing, flashing. She thought, these children do not need that going
Yeah.
around their heads at night. And many children are not getting enough sleep
Yeah.
because of phones at night. And some are
Mm.
even setting alarms to check their Instagram feeds at different times
Oh my
during the
goodness.
night. So sleep.
Yes, especially if there's a
Yeah,
sale. If one of the
exactly.
concerts are going to happen and tickets are going to be released and so on.
Or
That's
how many likes they've got. But back to the media agreement. So
yeah.
that's one thing you could do. You could talk about what they do if they come across something scary, who pays, what social media sites they might be allowed on, and making it appropriate for their age. So, for a 10-year-old be very different than a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And then what the consequences are when someone strays across the line. But the big deal is everybody signs up to this, even the parents, because we're role models for the way that we use technology.
Indeed. Yeah.
So that would be one really practical thing you can do with technology. But then so much of it, I think, is that everyday parenting. Things like building our children's self-esteem with words of praise. Praising our children and spotting when they do something well, that builds their self-esteem. You said we've got 7 little grandchildren, and the oldest is called Ezra, and he went off to his nursery school recently, and my daughter was a bit surprised when he came home, and he had this report, and in the middle of the report was this pink star. So we had a look and we thought, well, what has he done? Has he done a lovely painting, or has he done a difficult jigsaw puzzle, or recognized the letter of his name? And we laughed so much because it said this. It said, Ezra is kind. He shares his tissues with the children, with the other children. And I thought, in these COVID times, to be sharing snotty tissues with other children. But, I think that nursery teacher was so wise, because whether we're 3 or 33, it feels really good when someone praises our character.
Yeah.
And there's a lovely proverb that says that our words have the power of life, and we can be speaking life to our children simply by the words they say. And I really hope that my daughter will remember that and remind Ezra when he's older that he is kind, and he'll grow up to be a man that's known for his kindness.
The kindness. Yeah.
So, spotting character things and praising them. That might seem a bit removed from the stuff we were talking about before, but these things are so important and build our children's emotional well-being.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that it was about character. It was about who he was being rather than what he was doing, because so often we focus on praising and rewarding the doing, and subliminally communicate the fact that you're only great if you're doing something great. So it's a really powerful point about celebrating the character, because then you're not dependent on social media to tell you what you're good at or who you are. Amazing.
Exactly.
What other tips and insights in that?
So in relation to just building well-being, let's go there. I love one of the chapters in my book that's caused a little bit of controversy is headed, "It's okay to be ordinary." And what I mean by that, so I got involved in quite a heated debate with a presenter on Radio London called Vanessa Phelps on this, because she didn't agree with me on this. But what I was trying to say is that our children are growing up in a world where many of them, if they're asked, what would you like to do when you grow up? Many of them would say, well, I want to be famous. I want to be a celebrity. And they're being told the whole time that, to be famous and to be sparkling and to have your amazing number of followers on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, that's what life is all about. And actually, not all of them can do that. Not everybody can be famous. I mean, any single one of the parents listening to this podcast, one of their children could be a famous footballer or a famous author. But if we're not careful, we end up telling our children that they can do and be good at everything. And it's putting a huge weight on their shoulders. And so I think if we can step back from that and encourage them in their giftedness, encourage them to be great at the things that they're good at and that they enjoy, but also recognize that they can't always be good at everything. And for all of us, there'll be some limitations, there'll be some disappointments of life. And that, at the heart of that, is having a healthy identity and healthy well-being. And so I think that's quite an important message to give to our children, cheering them on so they become the best them that they can be.
I think you're absolutely right, Catherine, because in that message is this ability to deal with failure and to deal with, as you say, not getting things right all the time. And even with the work that we're doing in the corporate world, people struggle to deal with failure, to hold their hands up and say, I made a mistake, feeling, the blame culture or some consequences of being honest, and therefore get stuck and not able to learn and to grow and to develop. So if we can create the space to say, of course, you can be great and pursue the things, the passions you have in your heart, but life is going to happen. And here's how you deal with it when it does. That will bring a lot better balance and mental health, I think, for children and for the adults that they become in the working world.
I think that's right.
Go on.
Oh yeah, I wish that's something I'd learned probably earlier. And I know I was much too quick because it's how we build resilience. It's by learning through the knocks of life and picking ourselves up and having another go. And that's such an important quality. And I know our children would say to me when they were little, I was much too quick to say, oh, it doesn't matter, you'll be fine, or scoop in and just sort it all out for them.
Fix it, yeah.
Rather than just allowing them to be sad, allowing them to experience some of those more negative emotions, but then themselves push through and find strength and resilience through that failure. There's Michael Jordan, the basketball player. He has an amazing quote about the number of times that he failed. He was not picked for a key match when he was at school, even though he was a really good player. And he came home and he was absolutely distraught, and he apparently shut his bedroom door and just said he was never going to do basketball again. But his mother was really wise, and she came and she said, no, get up, have another go. And it's a lovely quote. He says something like, however many times he has missed the final shot, however many games he's lost, he lists this whole load of things where he's failed, and then he says, and that is why I succeed.
Wow.
He learned to push through them. And that's a great message to share with our children, I think, helping them manage those disappointments and failure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, as you started by saying, it's about developing the right character that they can then that will take them to be the adults that we want them to be down the road. Because I think you started by saying, or started this section at least by saying, I think the controversial conversation with Vanessa Phelps was around can everybody get to this level? And I would sort of almost challenge that and say, should everybody get to that level? Because some people can't handle the success. They can't handle. They haven't got the character in place. They get to that level of success and they just end up being a bad person. It kills them, because they're just not able to do that. So on that sort of in that mode of building and developing character, there's clearly love and there's rules, and perhaps there's a balance to be found between the two. What advice would you have on striking that balance between the loving side and the caring side and the sort of rules and discipline side of things?
Such a great question. Well, I think experts agree that there are basically 3 styles of parenting. So the one end of the spectrum is what's known as the permissive parent, which is like anything goes. There are very few rules, and any rules that are there, nobody cares if they're broken. There's no consequences. And that's great in one respect for children. They're often the envy of their friends because they think it's a great house, they can do all these things.
Party time.
Exactly. But those children don't feel safe because we need boundaries, if only to push against. And whilst there's lots of room in that home for free expression and creativity and independence, these kids often don't feel safe. That's one end. The other end is something called authoritarian parenting, which is the sergeant major, lots and lots of rules, every single one of them enforced. And these children feel controlled and hemmed in. If they are compliant by disposition, by temperament, they'll probably go along with all those rules. but often trouble brews later. They've got a
Yep.
little bit of rebellion later in life. But if they're a testing child, from the teenage years can be, quite feisty in that kind of home. And again, the children, there's no doubt that they feel safe and secure, but they've got no room for creativity, independence, and exploration. So what we need to aim for is right in the middle, and it's called assertive parenting. And this is really love with boundaries.
Yeah.
So it's having as few rules as possible on the things that really matter, and sticking to those rules, and working through on consequences on them, but doing it in the context of relationship and the context of connection. There's a lovely phrase for this. It's called rules without relationship lead to rebellion. And so it's in the context of relationship. And they know then that they're safe and secure, but there's room for that independence as well. And then as they get older, obviously we can adjust the rules and expectations so they can gain maturity and gain more independence, which all sounds great talking on this podcast, but much harder to do
until you have to do
it. That was my very next question. There was any examples that you're able to share just to bring that alive a little bit, where you have the care, you've limited it to just a couple of things or a handful of rules. Handful of rules in there. Any examples you can share that just might bring it alive for people?
I think there's a few little phrases that come to mind of things that we can do that help us in that. And one is say what you mean what you say. So be really clear on where that boundary is, and then follow through on it. And I know I have so many examples from our own children where things didn't go quite according to plan. But let me just share a couple. So, so one on say what you mean what you say. So we were going away for the weekend, and we said to one of our children that they could be at home on their own, as long as there were no parties in the house. And so all seemed fine. We were very clear about that, because say what you mean what you say. And so we came back to find that there were lots of messages on our answer phone, very irate messages from neighbors saying there'd been, music and parties going on. So we were mad. So, what was going on? He said, well, you didn't say, you said no parties in the house. I had a party in the garden.
Oh, my word.
We'd obviously not been entirely clear about what
is he a lawyer now by any chance?
No, he is a doctor. But the other one I remember, again, I like the expression, choose your battles. If we make a fight about everything, then we'll wear ourselves out, and our children will never know when something really, really matters. It was about a week before Christmas, and we had visitors who just arrived for Christmas, and we had consistently, for whatever reason, and I look back and I think, I don't know why, but we had at that moment said to our daughter that she could not have her nose pierced, which she wanted. Anyway, she'd gone out for the afternoon with her friends, and then she came walking back in. We had the house all Christmassy, lots of visitors there, and they bought these lime green sweatshirts that were a bit of a statement in themselves. And I saw this nose piercing, massive gold stud in her nose. So I said, is in front of everybody, I got this so wrong. I said, is that real? And she said, yes. And I said, take it out. And she said, no. And I was stuck. I was absolutely stuck. And I backed myself into a corner. And I thought, in hindsight, I realized that my reaction to that was far more about what I thought other people thought of my parenting, than it was about a stupid bit of metal in her nose. And it was, for us at that moment, it felt important, but it just wasn't a thing to have chosen to have a battle over. There were much bigger things coming down the road. So, that's two examples where we didn't get that quite right. And I have many more.
And we could line up behind you with quite a few of our own as well. But I love that. That's one of the phrases we use, choose your battle. And the other one that we use is what's the lesson? Because it's so easy to get so angry or frustrated at things. But what's the lesson? And for us, it's really about what's the lesson in terms of the character you're trying to form and the adult that you'd like to be wiser. What's the lesson in there, so that you're as clear with the messaging about what went wrong and what needs to be done differently in terms of the
And I
lesson.
was going to say,
I love that.
to add
Yeah,
one
go
thing
on,
to
sorry.
that. For me, it's what's the big picture?
Yeah.
And for me, the big picture has always been I want to have a long-term relationship with our children when they are fully grown adults, and I'm an old man at that point in time. But I want them to come and look for their old man, come and hang out with me and so on, and actually have that relationship. And if you don't choose your battles and you stick with you can't have the nose piercing and you can't do this and you can't do that, then why are they going to want to be around you? So you have to choose. Is that the most important thing in the world? Like you rightly concluded in hindsight. Actually, no. There are more important things than that. And if you can maintain the relationship, then you have that closeness with them. Then for now, thankfully, they want to hang around me, and maybe prayerfully that continues. But yeah, as you say,
That's
choose your
so
battles,
right.
think the big picture.
So right. And the values that we want to see in them and the character that we want to see in them and the relationship. Yeah, they trump all those other things, don't they? And even in those two stories I told you where we clearly got that quite wrong as parents, the beautiful thing was we were able to maybe less successfully with one of those than the other, but we were able to have the conversation, to unpick it, and to say we got that wrong. And I think that's a very powerful thing as parents, if we can admit to our children and model apology and forgiveness. Then again, they catch these things from us, don't they, in the kind of DNA of our family, the things that are important.
Yeah, that's super powerful, the apology and the forgiveness. I'm conscious of time, and there's so many other things we could discuss. But a question, I suppose, that would be helpful for us and for the audience, with the wisdom of having raised 4 children and now having 7 grandchildren, with all the research that you've done and the writing that you've done, what would you want to pass on to your children as parents and to your grandchildren, from all that you've learned and experienced? What are the key things that you urgently want them to understand and know?
That's such a great question. Can I just start by saying being a grandparent is amazing.
I
It's
can
so fun.
Move past the children to the grandchildren.
You get all the good bits. So we're about to go on a week's holiday away with them all, and
lovely.
it will be noisy and hard work, but so much fun.
Wonderful.
I agree with the person who said if they'd known grandchildren were this much fun, they'd have had them first.
Yeah, exactly.
But so many messages, and I look at my children parenting these little ones, and some bits of me are concerned because I think they are growing up in such a different world than
Indeed.
we parented in, with so much bigger challenges in many, many ways. But then I am in awe of how they can how they're doing it, and the kind of relationships that they are seeking to have. So gosh, let's pin it down to a couple of things. Well, I think the thing we were just talking about in allowing them to experience different emotions and to be sad and to just learn from some of the knocks of life. I think I was very quick to step in, the helicopter parent, it's called, whizzing around overhead and just swooping in to stop them having difficulty. So one of our kids would ring and say, I've left my football boots at home and there's a match this afternoon. I jump in the car and I drive across town with them. And actually, the few times I didn't do that, they never once missed a match. They managed to borrow some. They found a way around it. And we were on holiday last year, and my little granddaughter Eva had collected 3 purple pebbles from the beach.
Oh,
and
lovely.
she had lost one, and she was absolutely distraught. I mean, you'd have thought the world was coming to an end. Tears and tears. And I was about to say, I'll go down to the beach and find you another purple pebble. Don't worry, Granny to the rescue. And my daughter-in-law, I heard her, she was cuddling Eva, and I heard her say, it's really sad, isn't it, when we lose something that we love?
Wow.
In that moment, I thought, wow, what amazing parenting. I wouldn't have done that. I was trying to fix it. So I'm in awe of seeing how they do it. And they have their struggles, of course they do. But I love that. And just how we can show our children unconditional love and acceptance and encourage them to discover who they were made to be. There's a lot of research that to have a healthy identity, we need to have what's called a something bigger than me mindset. So being part of something bigger, whatever that is. And if faith is important, that might be faith, but it could be belonging to another group or campaigning on an issue of social justice, or you were just talking about your son at the beginning, going out and doing some environmental work. So I think helping our children just discover who they were made to be, that's one of the greatest gifts we can have as we cheer them on as parents. And it's tough, it's really tough, but no one loves our child like us, no one knows them like us, and we absolutely can give it our best shot.
And there's a great mindset of curiosity in there. I'm always curious to discover who they are and who they're becoming, and if we can just hold that space for them to become who they are rather than to fit into a mold that we'd like them to fit into, there is a lot to be discovered, a lot of joy in the process. We're going to ask another question?
No. Just commenting on that. I love those two points that you made there about the things you can do. One is allowing them to have the experiences, but then also just showing them the unconditional love. Oh, I know the point in that I was going to pick up on was just the developing something bigger, understanding there's something bigger than them. Could be a cause, could be faith, could be something. But the world isn't just about them, I think, is what I'm taking from that. Realize there's more to this world than just you and what you want and so on. I think that could take you to a much better place.
Which is a really important point. It's so easy to become self-obsessed with what you're seeing on social media, Instagram pictures and so on, to think I need to match that or I need to compare to that. But with a something bigger than me perspective, everything else finds its level and you don't get sucked into it as much. That's amazing. I'm tempted to ask more questions, but I'm also watching the time. Katharine, is there anything that we've not discussed that you thought I'd really love to share this? What's kind of on your heart that you'd like to leave the audience with as we end the podcast?
Gosh, you've asked really great questions. I think at the end of the day, it would be the just look as parents, giving ourselves a bit of grace, a bit of slack. It's tough. It's really tough. Not looking over our shoulder and comparing ourselves with how we think other parents are doing, but just giving it our best shot and reaching out for help. Organizations like yours, like Care for the Family, other friends. It can be lonely as a parent. And so there's just so much help out there and so many things we can learn. We learn to do so many things in life. We learn how to use our computer, we learn how to drive a car, how to do the gardening. And sometimes we don't realize that we can learn to do these have input and learning into how to manage these most important and precious relationships. Just want to say thank you for what you do as well. It's really, really impactful, your podcast and your teaching, and at Care for the Family, we want to celebrate that. And if anyone wants help, to check us out as well, that would be
how can they do that? Where can they go to find more information?
Our website, careforthefamily.org.uk, and then we're on the various platforms of social media as well.
Wonderful. Care for the Family. We will put that in the show notes there.
And for the books, can they get the books from the website as well?
So from us, so we have a shop at Care for the Family. You can get them from the website. My books are, wherever you get good books, but also Muddy Pearl are the publishers. So if you look on the Muddy Pearl and website, and also they have a subset of that called Kilfinnan Press, which is where the kind of more community-facing books are. Those are available, but trusty Google will help you find them.
Absolutely.
And remind the audience of the names of the books then, if you would.
Oh, okay. Well, the two we've talked about today are A Mind of Their Own, which is building your child's emotional well-being in a fast-changing world, A Mind of Their Own, and the other one, Left to Their Own Devices, Confident Parenting in a World of Screens.
Wonderful.
Both by me.
Amazing. Both very relevant to the time now. And, the one, A Mind of Their Own, building self-esteem. I'm sure as parents we'll be learning for ourselves as we go through the book for our young people, because it's a journey of of learning and growth for all of us in this new age of AI and digital and all things global in a digital world.
Yeah.
But
absolutely, they've got fun cartoons in, and then they're all really practical. So there's like activities you can do as a family. There are action points that you can put into practice with your children. They're not heavy. Loads of stories. So I think people will
wonderful.
enjoy them.
And keep looking for the latest updates.
Exactly.
You got your work cut out for you
As
for the next few
week
years.
turns, yeah. Wonderful. Well, Katharine, thank you so much. We've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Loads more we could have spoken about. Maybe in another 6 months or so, we'll do another one
We'll come
because
for an update. We'll need an update.
updated version. But thank you so much for making the time and for joining us, and most importantly, for the amazing work that you do. Thank
Brilliant.
you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been great.
And
Wonderful.
enjoy your holiday with all your children and grandchildren.
The tribe.
The tribe. We
That's your
will.
getaway.
Just hope it's going to be
Wonderful.
sunny.
Yes, we'll pray for good weather for you.
Wonderful.
Well, as we wrap up, we say thanks to Katharine, and thanks to our audience for tuning in yet again for another really insightful and inspiring episode here. For those who can see me on camera, you're probably wondering, why am I looking at Andrew like that? I've got the stiffest of necks. I don't know what I did last night in bed, but anyway, It's been great having you with us on this episode. Thanks, and we'll see you again next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, and you want to hear more, the best thing to do is subscribe. Then you'll never miss an episode. There's a new one every Friday. You can stay connected with us on social media at The 4 Habits for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to participate in discussions related to the show. We always love to hear from you. And of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on your preferred platform to allow us to reach more listeners and help people around the globe radically transform the way they do relationships so they too can enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life.